Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's January 16th, 2019, and this is a regular meeting of the Pear Beach Building Committee. And if we can just kick off things with an approval of the minutes. So I just ask, do we have, everybody hopefully has had a chance to take a look at the minutes from the meeting of the 12th, which was our last meeting. Any questions on the minutes? Or corrections, edits, updates?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Okay. Thank you for that. Moving on the agenda, this is our opportunity for public comment, so I'd invite the members of the community, if you'd like, to share any comments you'd like with us. This time around and going forward, we're going to limit public comment to 2 minutes per individual. So if someone would like to step up, please do, and you can just introduce yourself, let us know what your address is as well.
Hi, I'm Delise Bolliton. I'm at 150 Pear Point Road, so right across the street from the guardhouse and the property. I actually have some photographs that I'd like to distribute, if that's okay.
I'm sorry, Denise, could you spell your last name, please?
Bollotin. I took these today. It's just an example of how much sand migrates onto our property all year long. And years ago, when we had that, I agree, unattractive chain link fence, there was a berm that sat in, and that berm prevented the sand from blowing beyond it. So it would go from the beach through the parking lot, but it would stop there. When they took the fence down, they plowed the whole berm down. And the town was supposed to do something to replace that, either with plants or something to, again, prevent the sand from blowing, which they never did. So this is a constant problem for us. So these pictures show you that it goes all the way up our driveway, and there are areas that we used to have grass that my husband took care of along the front of our property. It's just a losing battle. It's now completely covered in sand, and he just can't keep up with it anymore.
Thank you for that.
So
thank you.
I'd like to see something done about that.
Thank you very much. That's great. Thank you. Anyone else like to share any comments?
Just one point of clarification. Do we have a chance?
Your name and...
Okay, Scott Reardon, R-E-A-R-D-O-N, Scott with 2 T's. And just a point of clarification, would we have a chance to comment maybe at a later point in time after your limit content to the meeting?
Not in this meeting, no.
Not in this particular meeting.
Certainly, in subsequent meetings,
yeah.
Feel free,
okay.
But... yeah.
I don't know what to say until now that I've...
Understood, yeah. Great. Anyone else care to share any comments? Great, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, excuse me, I have one point I'd like to share, and then I did the last meeting. Just, are the people that are here because they're concerned and don't want to limit the construction of buildings here, or are they here for some other purpose? So are you wanting to limit buildings like I'm concerned about? If so, just raise your hand. If your concern is something else other than that, primary concern that you do want to build or something like that, then you raise your hands over that. Okay, I thought it'd be worthwhile.
Thank you.
There are a lot of people here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, so moving along, the next item on our agenda is a discussion on the activities around securing a surveying firm, a land surveyor.
Discussion and vote.
Yeah, discussion and vote. So, Pam, if I can maybe
Sure.
turn that over to you guys.
So I thought it was quite successful. We had 8 surveying companies submit proposals, and all different ranges. Our lowest bidder was Ed Fattaroli at $5,350. We had I'll just read them straight down. Redis and Mead came in at 14.8. Control Point came in at 13.3. Walter Skid came in at 6,250. William Seymour came in at 12,380. Maria and O'Brien came in at 10,500. DeMarzo and Boreski came in at 9,400. And J. Edwards Association came in at 23,575. So, wide range.
Can you send me those numbers, please,
I
for
will.
the record?
Sure. So, obviously we looked at the lowest bidder, which was a lot lower than the others. And I did go upstairs, we sat with Ed Gentile and Jeremy Ginsberg, who have some experience with some of these vendors. And Ed Gentile has worked with Ed Federoli and company and has had some good work done by them. And so certainly reached out to, actually it's Bob, works at Ed Federoli Company's been around for 40 years, and family members now have taken over it for it. So they listed references. I met with Bob. He came into my office and confirmed that the 5,350 was indeed everything in our RFP that we were looking for to survey the property, including the soundings and the dock and the soil scientist, which would provide any flagging of wetlands around the property. And so I would recommend to this committee that we go with Ed Federoli. I did call his references, Darien, the Club of Darien, what I'm trying to say is Darien, Country Club, sorry. Darien Country Club has used their services. He was very happy with the company and lent to me that he would hire them again if he had any other work to do. Company in Stamford Harbor also said the same thing. They are currently working with this company along the harbor, and they, so far, very happy with their work, very happy with working with them. So I felt very comfortable with moving forward with the company, and I'd like to have the committee support.
Before you go there, you had asked me to do some research on a rowing vessel for them to use. Is that this firm that was looking for that, or was it a different
Yes,
firm?
this firm.
Have you figured out?
Yes, we have a boat on set, just as you had mentioned.
Okay, I
So
thought
I
you did,
confirmed that.
and I went looking for it today. I was away since last Friday,
Yeah.
and I thought it was down at the,
Yeah, we have it
Beach
because it's
area.
Tilly Pond Park. We
Yeah.
use it there as
okay,
well.
okay, I'm glad, okay.
Well, Nick Fright's got a boat tied up at the dock at the time.
At the boat club?
Yeah, not at the boat club, but at where the ramp is,
Okay.
he's got
And who's that?
Nick Fright, the lobster guy.
Can I ask this then, does any, well, first off, any gaps between what we had in our bid invitation and what these guys have come back with? I mean, are they
Yeah, no
essentially
gaps.
satisfying all of our requirements?
Yep, we sat down, we went over the entire RFP, and he had everything marked out, and I was quite satisfied with what they were.
I just wanted to know, I don't know about this stuff, but what are soundings? Is that the depth of the water? Is that what he's gonna check? Is that the bathymetric
I'm
survey?
learning that
No,
too.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, I picked that up.
Big
from
word
one of the
there.
bids, and I had to look it up on Google.
The harbor master, with the help of the Darien Boat Club and the Rotting Yacht Club, surveys the main channel. We're on a 3-year plan, basically from the U.S. Coast Guard buoys up and around to the town boat ramp. I don't survey the mooring fields, which is really where the activity of this change or this plan is, and that's what he's gonna do. So he's not gonna focus on the depth of the channel where the boats would come in and out.
And that's called the hydrographic survey, correct?
Hydrographic survey,
Yeah.
yes.
So in other words, because I noticed in one of the bids, the Pear, they said that they would need to have a bathymetric survey. So this will cover that, so if somebody decides to build a pier, they won't have to do additional work in terms of
Oh, no, they'll have to do tremendous
Well, I
additional
meant
work
in
to do
terms,
something like
well,
that,
I
but
meant
yes.
in terms of the depth of the water and things.
And I also think he's gonna use that as a data point for the sand that keeps coming on shore and going out. But in essence, it's measuring the depth of the water at certain tides.
Just a quick thing on the surveying bids. Did any of the responders suggest that our RFP was incomplete and they needed to do some other kinds of work than what was specified?
Hydrographic survey
Just
was,
that.
that was, we had in the application suggestions other than what we had in the RFP. And if a hydrographic survey was needed, some of the firms would add that additional cost on top of their baseline lump sum. And come to find out that we had the boat club had a hydrographic
Sure.
survey done, so we wouldn't need that.
Okay, no.
And some said soil scientists in the suggestion, but yet in the RFP, we did have wetlands to be
Mhm.
delineated on the property. So
Okay.
some grasped that soil scientist and used it as an addition, and some put it right in their lump sum.
Okay,
But that was, and then one did say additional suggestion as a drone survey. And that was $4,900 on top of their $23,000.
On top of the 23,000? Just a point of word, now, we can vote to move this forward. Do we have to then go over to the Park and Recs Commission and have them rubber stamp it before it gets forwarded to Kate to start writing a purchase order?
I don't think so.
I don't believe so.
This is fairly straightforward and it's,
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so I would, at this point, if you vote on this company, then I'll go ahead and,
Yes.
and write to them, and then let Kate know.
Okay.
so maybe if there's no other questions, can I invite a motion to authorize Pam to go ahead and move forward with the recommendation?
Do you wanna do the motion, or, I mean, I'll say the motion that we'd like to go forward with, Federally
Yep.
as our surveyor.
a second.
Great. All those in favor? Great. So the motion's passed.
Okay, step one.
Wonderful.
Step.
Okay, so moving on to the next item, Pam. Pam, you can just give an update to the committee on where we are with the design architect selection process. That'd be great.
This piece instead. So we had 5 proposals, and 3 of which were very comparable in price anyway. And these have been sent out to the committee. And yeah, I actually did a list, but maybe I'll just go through it. So we had Stantec, who came in at $291,000.
Here's my list if you'd like to.
Oh, thank you. So we had Stantec at 291. We had QA and M out of Farmington, and they came in at 333,000. We had Schmidt Design Group out of Orange, Connecticut for 150,000. We had Neil Hawk, architectural design, coming at 144,000. And lastly, we had Landtech of Westport coming in at 136,000. So we had 3 of which were within scope of what we have and have to deal with money, and then we have 2 that are very high. So we did send all these out to committee members, and people are reading through them and going through the process, and I think that's about it that I can speak to anyway. But, happy to get the 5 bids. Happy to get, the 3 that were within our budget, and then of course, we'll have to discuss whether or not the ones that are higher are worth, they're pretty high over 150,000 that we have.
Great. Okay, so this then dovetails into the next item on our agenda, which is just a discussion around the selection process. I know everybody's been reading through.
Let me just make a comment on that thing. These proposals are available in Pam's office. If somebody wants to look at them. They're mostly pretty comprehensive. Some of them use I guess one of them, Neil Hawk, is using Stantec.
No, West Sampson.
Weston Sampson, okay, he did the master plan.
The master planner has done some additional work here in town, yes. And Neil Hawk also did the Wheat Beach concession stand, yes.
Okay. And I don't wanna get in trouble for saying this, none of them, they're all based on doing an engineering study of the property and what's best for the environment. There's not one of them where anybody drew a picture of a building. Okay? Their charge was to evaluate the existing building, evaluate the property, and then come up with proposals. So you can all rest a little bit easy that at this stage of the game, there's no Taj Mahal. Just
Right, and if anybody does, it certainly can come look at them in my office. If you want your own copies, we will have to charge you for them, they're quite large. But you're certainly welcome to come in and have a seat and look at them.
Great.
Okay.
So Randy, maybe if I can turn to you and just ask you to give us a quick update on the process that we're going through.
Yeah,
We can open
as
it up
part
for
of the
questions as
process,
well around the process.
there was a couple of pages in the package that Pam distributed. We've already gone through the process of forming the selection team. And the second step is distributing copies of the bids to the group. We've done that. Some of us have had a chance to review them a little bit, probably not as much as I would have liked to yet. And so it's up to the individuals on the committee to start reviewing these things. Mike had generated a scorecard to use as a guide for trying to evaluate what we have. It'd probably be a good idea if we could all go through this thing. I think some of it's a little difficult to quantify, but if we at least make a start, the areas we want to concentrate on, that would kind of help us.
I think stepping through it would be helpful, yeah.
Yeah.
Briefly.
Stepping through this?
Yeah, the questionnaire, yeah.
Okay.
Not the scoring of it, but just
Sure.
how to do the scoring, you know, because, well, I have a couple of questions. Maybe I should just proceed with the questions, is this a good time?
Sure.
Question 6. There's a little parenthesis there, I equals interview. Do we wait for the interview before we score
Yes,
these
that
things?
was the intention.
Okay,
Some of these, we can make a determination based upon reading, or at least the hope would be we can make a
Yes.
determination based upon reading, and then leaving some of these open until we've had the opportunity to actually get face-to-face with these folks and interview them.
Number 8, the creativity of the solutions, we can't do that yet.
I would say that's for
Yeah.
the interview
Okay.
process, yeah.
So I'm just, and
So we're basically gonna use the front page for getting down to the 3 and the second page to select one, is that?
Well,
approach,
once
or-
again, first off, let
Yeah.
me, if I could just say a few things, it's not a perfect tool, it's an imperfect tool,
Okay.
it's subjective, and it's kind of marries, you know, our interpretation based upon the read-through as well as the interview process. And you raise a good question around how we get to the top 3. I think there's probably 2 ways to look at it. If in fact we had 5, and they were all within kind of a budgetary number, then we'd have a process we'd have to go through, a process of elimination, you know, force ranking and a process of elimination. At the moment, we have 3, and 2 are essentially out of the range of our budget. So, to some extent, I think one can look at it as being self-evident who the top 3 are. I don't think we're prepared to discuss that now. We've got the meeting set up on the 23rd, and the intention would be for us to get together and just, to the best of our ability, based upon whatever we've come up with through this kind of imperfect scoring mechanism and the read-through, settle on a top 3. I think we'll go, I think on one hand, is fairly self-evident, but we can reserve that until we get together on the 23rd, so.
Sure.
I would also suggest, in addition to filling out this sheet, it might be interesting if we rank order just
Yep.
to see where
Absolutely.
we come out.
Yeah, and it wasn't the intention really to have this be the sole mechanism for kind of binding us all to how we're gonna, it's
We're
really
just trying to
a tool.
come up with a framework.
That's good. It
Discussion
will be
points.
a good framework for discussion.
Yeah,
Yes.
that was the hope, recognizing it's got some things that need to be done with it.
And the other, in line with reviewing this and sort of looking at this, the more interview type questions that we can come up and submit to Pam, so that she can come up with sort of a summary when we do the actual interviews.
You know what I thought would be helpful to the committee would be to take some of the questions that I already have on file, compile them and send them to the committee.
Sure.
And then that way you can, look at them and see if there's anything additional you want to add.
Sure.
Might help.
It'd be a good prompt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Well-
do you have on record the questions we used when we did the interviews for the Weed Beach
Yes.
project?
Yes, that's what I'm using.
Because my experience then is you read the proposals in advance, but the interviews really kind of changed everything. Each firm's approach was very, very different. Even things down to the energy levels of the individuals and how you sort of saw them working with the team and the community and whatever. Huge to who they sent. Some firms sent their top people, others sent more underlings, so you could see how committed they were to the project or not, depending on who they made available. So I don't think we want to go in sort of prejudging based on just the written document, because there's some huge differences.
Absolutely not. I think the whole presentation and dog and pony show that they put on will be key to what we're gonna decide. So we're gonna decide next week on the top three. We'll rough out the questions, and then January 31st, which is a Thursday, is set aside to interview them. We move the time to start to like 11:30. No, that doesn't work for you.
I'll see if I can reorganize.
Yeah.
If I can add something, maybe while you're kind of peeking there, maybe something that's also worth pointing out is, Randy used the term selection team, and what we've done here is we've created essentially an extended, what you can call an extended selection team. And the extended selection team is made up of the committee members as well as subject matter experts within the town's organization. So I'll go through the names. So in addition to the committee members, Lori Bora, who's the chair of the Parks and Recs Commission, is a member of that extended selection team. Jim Coughlin, who's the assistant director of Parks and Recs, working as part of Pam's team, will be joining us on this selection and evaluation team. Jim Flynn, who's the supervisor of Darien Parks Maintenance. Ed Gentile, who's the director of Public Works. Pam, of course. And Jeremy Ginsberg as well, who's director of Darien Planning and Zoning. So, as I said, it's an extended team. Everybody is working through all of the names that I just mentioned, in addition to the members of the committee. We're all working through reviewing the documents. We'll all meet together. Everyone at this stage, we're working through some scheduling things and some. But at this stage, everyone is planning on joining us for the interview process as well. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the committee members that are voting. We're charged to vote, but we're taking full advantage of the input of the folks who A, have gone through this, B, are living it every single day, who have expertise based upon prior exercises that they've gone through elsewhere and at other points in their careers. So, the goal here is to be as fully informed as we possibly can be before we get to a final decision on the architects. Anything else, Randy?
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers what we're gonna do in January.
Yeah.
Right until the end of January.
Yeah. Any questions at this stage amongst the committee members on the process? Nope. Great. Okay, so that is that. Okay, So first off, do we have any, what, new business here?
Not any longer.
Okay, great. Any new business from any of the members of the?
Do we wanna just read in Adele at the?
Yeah, that's what I thought I'd do, yeah. So, two, would you like to go ahead and do that?
Me?
Yeah.
The board, given that Cheryl Russell is on sabbatical for 3 months, the Board of Selectmen has appointed Adele
Connor?
Coniff
Kind
as an alternate member, and she will serve until Cheryl gets back in the springtime, and I would assume she'll stick around to be an alternate member as needed to fill in if we need a quorum.
Mhm.
And Adele is currently on the RTM, Parks and Recreation Committee.
Yeah, she's actually
Been on-
Heading.
She's the chair.
She's the
She's the chair.
chair of the,
Chair
yeah,
of the RTM,
of the
Parks
RTM
and
Parks and
Parks
Recs
and
Committee.
Rec Committee.
Yeah,
okay.
and obviously very knowledgeable of, you know.
She's been chair for the last 3 years, I believe, 2 or 3 years, because Cheryl was before that, I think. Oh, no, she wasn't the chair, but I can't remember. But I know Adele has been
Yeah.
chair for the last few years.
They're both on the committee,
Yes.
have been for many years.
Yeah, long-standing member of the community, and once again, very knowledgeable of the amenities in the parks. It's great. And I think maybe it's also worth, I think, Mark, maybe you can help me here. I think what was kind of acknowledged here is, you know, with the appointment of Adele, is that, you know, as with subsequent building committees, as we go forward, as the town goes forward, it seems as though it would be a good idea to have an alternate, so that, once again, you could be assured that we have quorums when necessary.
I believe there was an alternate on the town garage building committee,
Got it.
and they found it very helpful in making sure they had a quorum. Because when there's building going on, there's deadlines,
Yeah.
Right.
and you don't want to be unable to do your work because you don't have a quorum.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's,
That'll be helpful.
we're proceeding that way with other building committees.
Got it, yeah. Thank you very much.
I think there was one other thing in the new business, which was
Oh, we had the
additional
update on these,
questions. We also had additional questions that were asked.
yeah, so we have, do you want to touch on these?
Sure.
Yeah.
So over the past month, since we had our last meeting, we had a few questions come in through committee members looking for some answers on certain things. And for instance, just recently, Martha sent out an email to Kate, our town administrator, asking if we could provide anything that explains the governing rules when determining the winning bidder in municipal bids. How easily can you select someone that is not the low bidder, and once you select someone, can you negotiate with them? Kate's reply was, it depends on whether it is a bid or an RFP for professional services. With an RFP for professional services, you have more latitude in the choice, not necessarily needing to choose the lowest bidder. You can look at other aspects of the proposal, and yes, I would say you can negotiate some things. Cheryl Russell had reached out to me looking for a question for Jeremy Ginsburg. How many meetings does he think the P&Z and EPC will need regarding Pear Tree Beach with the architect? Jeremy's response was to assume 1 meeting with the Architectural Review Board for any proposed building, 2 public hearings with the Planning and Zoning Commission, with CAM approval, flood damage prevention application, site plan, maybe a landfill or regrading application, maybe a mandatory referral. No meeting with the EPC. This assumes no inland wetlands on or within 50 feet of the property. The Darien permitting process, which is ARB and P&Z Commission, will likely take 8 to 12 weeks. This is a good thing to see how each proposal treats the permitting process. For example, it appears that on page 12 of the Land Tech proposal that this would be an extra cost if they attend an ARB or P&Z Commission public hearing/meeting. So that's important as you look through the proposals. And thirdly, this was from Martha, and reached out to Mike to find out if we can get information from Jeremy to clarify on how much money we could spend on restoring the Pear Tree bathhouse. I have looked at zoning regulations and Jeremy's write-up, and the up to 50% figure appears to be based on fair market value of the building. My interpretation may be incorrect, but it seems we should apply 50% to the appraised value of the building on the property record card, and not to the assessed value, which is just an arbitrary figure for tax purposes. On the property card, the appraised value of Pear Tree's bathhouse is $383,400, 50% of which would be $191,700. Jeremy Ginsburg did say, yes, Dave Keating and I just reviewed the tax card and Martha has the correct numbers. So $191,700 is the correct one to use.
And that's just to clarify, that's as opposed to what was originally stated as the 50% of the fair market value, which would have been $134,000. So
What was the 175? Was it 134?
I think, yeah, the fair market, I think, on the card is 268. So the half of that number would have been 134. Okay, great.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have anything that they'd like to, any business, any new business? Mark?
No, I got homework, I'm good.
Something to do.
Anything, Lori? No? Great. Okay, so with that, if there's no other business, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Any second? Great.
Second,
Who?
Mark.
Mark?
Martha?
All those in favor?
Some man.
Great. Okay, meeting's adjourned.